Hello everyone and welcome back to the Beer Junkies. Today we are going to be brewing an Irish Red. Now before I get into the Irish Red, I wanted to announce that we are going to be collaborating with a homebrew YouTube channel. The way this is going to work is he is going to brew one of my recipes on his system. I'm going to walk him through all of my steps so he can follow it as close as we can. We're going to wrap it up with he will send me a bottle of the beer he makes and I will send him a bottle of the beer that I make, and we are going to taste test together to see what the differences are and how different it is brewing on a commercial system versus brewing on a homebrew setup that most of you will most likely have access to. So I'm very excited to be doing this. Please stay tuned to upcoming videos for more announcements on this. But back to the Irish Red. The Irish Red is a malty amber ale. It's got a light caramel sweetness with a low balancing bitterness. It is a very delicious beer, one of my favorites. We will walk you through our ingredients, so our grain profile, the hop profile, the yeast we use, and the water profile. We will also walk you through our mashing setup, mash out, sparging, boil, whirlpool, knockout, fermentation, and then at the very end, I will go through my taste test. So stick with us and enjoy. The Irish Red has a slightly malty flavor with a little bit of caramel sweetness, but also a touch of dryness. So we want that water profile to be neutral for that amber color. So for that, we are going to want 50 parts per million of calcium, 15 parts per million of sodium, 75 parts per million of sulfate, and 65 parts per million of chloride. To do that, I'm going to add calcium chloride, gypsum, and Epsom salt. All three of those will get me exactly where I want. I won't add any acid to this one because we have a little bit of roasted barley in there and it's going to drop the pH just a smidge. It should still keep it in the range that I want it to. Right now I'm filling up the hot liquor tank to the right volume and temperature. Once it gets there, I'm going to transfer it into the mash tun to mash in. But before that, I'm going to show you our grain bill. All right, this is the grain bill that I'm using. For the base malt, I'm using Maris Otter, which I've already started to get going. We've got the rice hulls on top. You can see we got that crush down below. We don't want it too fine because we are using a standard mash tun. So we use a 2-row mill just to get enough of that husk in there to build that bed up. For the specialty malts, we are using chocolate malt from Thomas Fawcett. We're using crystal malt 1 from Thomas Fawcett. And then we are using roasted barley over here. The chocolate malt is very, very dark, coming in probably close to 500 SRM. And then this will add color and a little bit of complexity. This is where we get that malty sweetness from, the caramel. This brand of crystal malt is about 45-ish Lovabond, so it's right on the lower end. We'll add just a touch of sweetness, not too much of those crystal flavors. And then the roasted barley, similar to the chocolate, there'll be a light color adjustment at our small amounts, and then it will add a little bit more complexity. You don't want to add more than around 10% of the crystal malt. If you're using a higher crystal malt, you want to use even less than that. If you add too much crystal, it'll be a little bit too cloying for the style. The red is supposed to be very easy drinking with just a touch of caramel sweetness. For the color adjustments that we're using, roasted barley and chocolate malt, we won't add more than 2% of either because we don't want too much of that chocolate or that coffee or that roasted flavor coming in. Just a hint to add it in the background, but definitely not in the dominating role. This is our mashing setup for the Irish Red. We are pulling the wort from the bottom of the mash tun, pushing it through our wort pump into the lower herms, coming out of the upper herms, and then it is recirculating through our sparge ring. So we mash the Irish Red at 152 degrees for about 60 minutes. That will give us that balance between the beta amylase and the alpha amylase to get a neutral beer. We don't want it too sweet. We don't want it too dry. We want it right in the middle. After the 60 minutes are up, we're going to raise this temperature to 168 degrees for a mash out to turn off all those enzymes, or at least start to turn them off. And then we are going to begin to sparge. So I'll be back when it's time to sparge. All right, we just got to mash out, so now we are sparging. So we are pulling the wort from the bottom of the mash tun, pushing it into the boil kettle over there. At the same time, I'm pulling the sparge water from the hot liquor tank through our pump, going up into the mash tun to rinse the rest of the residual sugars from those grains. After the sparge is done, we'll bring it to a boil. We'll boil it for 90 minutes and then whirlpool. There's a medium to medium low bitterness with the Irish Red, and there is also an optional low earthy flavor and aroma. So we add about 16 IBUs worth of bittering hops at 60 minutes, and then we add about 4 IBUs worth of hops at 30 minutes. For these, we use Fuggles as our bittering, and we use East Kent Goldings as our flavoring. You do want to use an English hop that will give you that earthy floral flavor and aroma. They're also very low in alpha acids, so the bitterness will not be intense. You do not have to add that 30-minute hop if you don't want to. It's totally optional, but for this recipe, we will. We just got to a boil, so we will boil this for 90 minutes. We will add our hops in at 60 minutes and 30 minutes. We'll add yeast nutrient in with 10 minutes left, and then we will add Rolflock tablets as our coagulator with 5 minutes left. We just finished boiling, so now we are whirlpooling. We're pulling the wort from the bottom of the boil kettle, pushing it through our pump into the tangential input. This will create a vortex to pull all of the shrub and hops to the center of that boil kettle so we do not push them over during knockout. We just finished the whirlpool, so now we are going through knockout. We're pulling wort from the bottom of the boil kettle, pushing it through our pump into the heat exchanger. Over here, we are going in right around 64 degrees, which is perfect. We got our oxygen going in right there. And going all the way down here, you can see that we are going into the fermenter and filling it up as we push out all that excess air. This is the yeast we use. It is the Irish ale yeast from White Labs. It has good attenuation to help with that dry finish. It also helps promote a nice malt profile. We knock out at 64 degrees, and we will let this free rise up to 67 degrees as fermentation starts. We hold it here until we get about 5 specific gravity points within our terminal gravity. Then we will let it free rise up to 72 degrees for the diacetyl rest. Once that's complete, we will cold crash it to 33 degrees, transfer it to the bright tank, and then carbonate it to about 2.4 volumes. All right, this is what we made. We have that crystal clear amber color. There's a slightly off-white head for the smell. I get a light grainy sweetness with some caramel and bread coming through. But it's very mild for the taste. Oh, a nice malty sweetness, especially into the aftertaste. I get a little bit of caramel up front. And on the end, I get that bready toffee note. Oh, it's very refreshing. We're over the age of 21. We do not condone underage drinking. Please drink responsibly. Cheers. If you would like more exclusive brewing content, make sure you click that subscribe button right below. And if you would like to see more recipes just like this one, feel free to visit our website, thebeerjunkies.com. We have a whole library full of beer recipes that you can browse through. Cheers.